In the midst of an Auschwitz death row selection process, an angel, in the form of a German prisoner named Willy Brockman, appeared and just as quickly disappeared. In the process, shoving Frank Grunwald from one select group of young boys to another. In those seconds, Frank realized that Willy's stunning action had literally transferred him from death row to life.
I didn't know I was on death row with my brother. I didn't realize it. I was too naive to realize. Again, just shows the naivete of a 11-and-a-half-year-old. I realized it immediately when he moved me into that older group.
Did that realization make you either want to grab your brother and bring him over,
I couldn't.
or go back?
I knew that was not even a thought of mine, because there was no way I could grab him and move him.
Because of his limp.
Because of his limp. Just no way.
Were you afraid that someone might have seen what happened and were going to pull you back?
Well, there was always the threat, but I actually wasn't thinking about that. It happened so quickly. I knew that was a possibility, but it didn't really bother me. It didn't stay with me as a threat.
Did you try to blend in any way? Like, what was your thought
I just
process?
stayed with these kids, and I saw my mother, who actually looked me up and said goodbye to my mother. And I still remember her telling me that if you get back to Prague and need to get it in touch with Frank, my brother, he's in New York City, and he might be helpful to you after the war. She didn't use the words, if I don't survive, or if you end up being alone, or if you can't find the rest of your family, go and look up your Uncle Frank. She just said, remember, Frank is living in New York City. If you need his help after the war, look him up. So basically I said goodbye to her. I can't remember officially saying goodbye to my brother. I wish I could remember more clearly what happened there. I don't know if this is fantasy or what, but I think I said goodbye to him somehow. But I really can't be sure, 100% sure. The more I think about it, the more I question my memory about that.
When you say you said goodbye to your mother, was it actually goodbye?
No. It was a goodbye like we'll see each other again.
That goodbye, shared between Vilma Grunwald and her cherished Misa, would be the last words the two would ever speak. Following their parting embrace, the caring mother moved to the other group of boys, the group of boys selected by Joseph Mengele to die. The group of boys where her second son, John, remained. A short time later, mother and son perished together in the Auschwitz gas chamber.
Well, so then she, of course, when she realized that he was on death row, she decided to stay with him.
And how do you know that? Like, did she say that to you?
Well, I found it out after the war.
So you didn't know?
So I didn't know that she died till after the war. I wasn't sure if she was transported out to another camp or what. I found out through my father after the war, who survived,
he knew
that she volunteered to stay with him. She certainly would not have him go into the gas chamber by himself.
She was a remarkable woman.
Yes, she was, but apparently it was not uncommon. Many of the mothers insisted on staying with their children that were being gassed.
Unimaginable, really.
Right.
So what happens to you now?
So what happens is the remainder of the group, of the 5,000 group that came with us in December, gets liquidated. Basically, the people that are not saved, like some of the 14-year-olds that I was with, a few of the doctors that were, including my father, that were moved to the medical camp, a few select people like Dina and her mother, she saved her mother because she told Mengele, if you kill her, I'm going to commit suicide. So he agreed that her mother would survive. So they moved. These few people are moved to another camp in Auschwitz, and the remainder of over 4,000 are gassed on July 10th and 11th in 2 days. All the children, all the grandparents, my grandmother, my father's mother was in it. My mother, of course, and the rest of the, I don't know the exact number, 4,500, 4,800 people.
And were you still there when that happened? Or
I'm still there, except I'm now in another location. Okay. I'm in Camp D, ABC D, which is a men's camp, not a family camp anymore. And
does that make a difference in how it runs or operates?
Well, it was interesting because what was interesting about it is somebody must have, maybe Willie did it, because my father certainly didn't have the power to do it. But Willie Brackman had a lot of connections in Auschwitz because of his position. And so he might have done it because I ended up in a small medical clinic barrack with a bunch of doctors. And they were kind of privileged in a way because of what they did. Mm-hmm. And they had little more food and little more of this, a little more of that, because of their connections in the camp and because of their value as physicians and dental doctors. And I was sort of put under the wing of a couple of the dentists that were there, Polish dentists, really nice guys. And the rest of those 14-year-olds, I was only 12 at that point, the 13 and 14-year-olds that were also saved by Mengele, I think he was hoping that some of these boys would be able to work, mm-hmm. Either in factories or in cleaning up or building up Germany after the war. And that, we don't know why he saved us, but that's one of the possibilities. They were put in a totally different barrack altogether, run by a vicious supervisor who apparently was very mean and very cruel. And I was sort of isolated from that group and put into this little medical clinic barrack, which was great. Several of the boys and me were put on a work duty where we were pushing a wooden cart and working between some of the warehouses that warehoused prisoners' clothing. So you can imagine when thousands and thousands of prisoners would be coming into Auschwitz, they had to undress. All their civilian clothing was taken from them. Underwear, shirts, coats, winter coats, shoes. And they were given prisoner uniforms. All this clothing had to be cleaned, sorted, and eventually, apparently, it was shipped to Germany.
Why?
For the German population.
Because the war had made it.
This is the war, and there are shortages of everything. So we were pushing this cart. About three or four other boys and I were pushing this cart all day, from warehouse to warehouse, and moving clothing around. This went on for several months. Eventually, I think it was in October of 44, my father was shipped out of Auschwitz. We knew that particular camp that he was in, which was the medical camp, was being evacuated, and I was ready for him to see him walk out, because the main walk out of the camp, one of the main walks out of the camp, was right next to us, next to our camp.
And so while you and your father are separated in this camp, I would assume you're not allowed interaction like you had.
We are not allowed interaction. I did get a pass. I don't know who got it for me. I did get one pass one day for like an hour to go and visit my father. This was around August, shortly after my mother was killed and brother were killed. I had a chance to visit with him for 20 minutes or half an hour.
And where do you even start in a conversation at this point?
Oh, it was very difficult